Chapter 3. A prayer of Habakkuk the prophet upon Shigionoth. O Lord, I have heard thy speech, and was afraid. O Lord, revive thy work in the midst of the years. In the midst of the years make known. In wrath remember mercy. God came from Teman, and the Holy One from Mount Paran, Selah. His glory covered the heavens, and the earth was full of his praise. And his brightness was as the light. He had horns coming out of his hand, and there was the hiding of his power. Before him went the pestilence, and burning coals went forth at his feet. He stood and measured the earth. He beheld and drove asunder the nations, and the everlasting mountains were scattered, and perpetual hills did bow. His ways are everlasting. I saw the tents of Cushan in affliction, and the curtains of the land of Midian did tremble. Was the Lord displeased against the rivers? Was thine anger against the rivers? Was thy wrath against the sea, that thou didst ride upon thine horses and thy chariots of salvation? Thy bow was made quite naked according to the oaths of the tribes, even thy word, Selah. Thou didst cleave the earth with rivers. The mountains saw thee, and they trembled. The overflowing of the water passed by. The deep uttered his voice and lifted up his hands on high. The sun and the moon stood in their habitation. At the light of thine arrows they went, and at the shining of thy glittering spear. Thou didst march through the land in indignation. Thou didst thresh the heathen in anger. Thou wentest forth for the salvation of thy people, even for salvation with thine anointed. Thou woundest the head of the house of the wicked by discovering the foundation of his neck, Selah. Thou didst strike through with his staves the head of his villages. They came out as a whirlwind to scatter me. Their rejoicing was as to devour the poor secretly. Thou didst walk through the sea with thine horses, through the heap of great waters. When I heard, my belly trembled, my lips quivered at the voice. Rottenness entered into my bones, and I trembled in myself, that I might rest in the day of trouble. When thou comest up unto thy people, he will invade them with his troops. Although the fig tree shall not blossom, neither shall fruit be in the vines, the labor of the olive shall fail, and the fields shall yield no meat. The flock shall be cut off from the fold, and there shall be no herd in the stalls. Yet I will rejoice in the Lord. I will joy in the Lord of my salvation. The Lord God is my strength, and he will make my feet like hinds' feet, and he will make me to walk upon mine high places, to the chief singer on my stringed instruments. This is a chapter of interesting unknowns. The Shigionoth, we believe, not know for sure, but believe, was a type of stringed instrument that they played. Might have been in the temple. We're not really sure. Have no idea what size it was, what it looked like, what its tone was. Just a type of musical instrument. Would have been something along the lines of a bass or a violin. Something along that line. Could have been any size. We really don't know. Second, we have the word Selah, S-E-L-A-H. That appears to have been one of two things. Either a musical cue, some instruction that was given to the person who was singing this song or saying this prayer, depending on how it was performed. If it was with music, it would have been a song. If it was just spoken, it would have been a prayer. And Selah would have been a Hebrew indication that you were supposed to do one of two things. Either pay special attention to what was just said. Of course, the Eastern Greek tradition would have been to say, now pay attention to this and then give it. The Hebrew tradition is to say it first and then tell you at the end. Pay attention to what we just said. Or a note, if it's sung, not a musical note, but an indication that you were to take a break and listen to the music for a little while until the music sort of caught up to where you could start into the words again. Now, that's as much as we know about that. Verses 14 to 20, or well, 4 to 20 actually, are a poem in Hebrew that is profoundly good Hebrew, but that translates abysmally poorly into English. Got to remember, Habakkuk was a poet. And his whole prayer, this whole song, the goal of it was to pray to Jehovah that Jehovah would return and look after and care for Israel as much as he had done in the latter days, which would avert, hopefully, the judgments that were going to take place that Habakkuk and all the other prophets could see were coming. The 6 lines are, yet will I rejoice in the Lord. I will joy in the God of my salvation. The Lord God is my strength, and he will make my feet as like hinds' feet, and he will make me to walk upon mine high places. Now, that doesn't set your soul on fire too much in English, but in Hebrew it does a really great job. Basically, the idea here is the ecstatic joy that he feels at the coming of the Lord, and his understanding that the Lord knows everything that's happening with his people, and that even though there are trials that they will face, in the long run everything will be made right. And that is the overall message of the Old Testament, which we're almost through now. I think we got a couple more: Zephaniah, Haggai, and Malachi, I think, when we're done. And he will joy in the last days, it doesn't say that, but joy in the last days in the God of my salvation. And the Lord God is my strength. In other words, even though he had these questions in the very beginning, he now has total faith as a prophet. He understands that the Lord's way of doing things is very different.